Welcome back. If you regularly commute down Burhans Boulevard, you might have come across a sizable group of people protesting the Hagerstown Police Department last week after police detained a 15-year-old girl who struck a car while riding her bike and was knocked out for about 2 minutes. Colin, do you think the public's reaction was appropriate in this situation?
No, I do not. So I think that there are a couple of pieces to take away from this. And granted, with everything that's going on nationwide, I know that there's a spotlight on any sort of police brutality or overuse of force and everything else. But unlike some of the local media, I actually spent the 15 minutes to look at the full footage from the body camera. There is no constitutional right to reject or to not obey a lawful order from a police officer. So according to police SOW or SOP, this was not anything egregious. If a minor is involved in an accident and they're at fault, the police has to not detain, but they're only able to release the minor to their parents. So this entire incident came about because she ran a red light, ran into a car. Whether she was knocked unconscious or not is irrelevant. And if you watch the beginning of the footage, all they were trying to ascertain is, what is your identity? Who are your parents? Where can we reach them so we can have them come down? And she became excessively combative, resisted. So the first, before you even get to the part where they're trying to put her in a squad car, she's yelling, screaming, cursing, calling the police officers everything under the sun. You've got a whole crowd of people gathering around. It becomes a very tense situation because of that. Again, they're not trying to do anything other than do their job, find out who her parents are. She will not release that information. And it's only at some point, because she tried to leave the scene, so they tried to stop her. So that led into their restraining her to the point that they're trying to put her in a squad car. Now, again, some of the local media has done a very, very poor job in terms of portraying the entire situation, because I don't think they wanted to go for the sensational as opposed to the truth. And if you compare what was released on media versus what was released in terms of the full footage, there was a true disservice done when the media interpreted it for people who have a very short attention span.
Not only local media, but it made CNN as well a couple of days later. Jim, can you talk a little bit about again, the public's reaction to it and the protesting, as well as, the mayor's attempt to address what happened?
So, first of all, and I truly believe, let's back up. So from the public's reaction, I think obviously there was reaction on two sides. The one reaction was this kid needed to be detained or held until the parents got there. I think that's a perfectly legitimate piece because that's the law, right? You can't release. Those that tried to create something out of this that frankly I don't think it is, and again, I understand we only have the videotape and the videotape doesn't necessarily tell it all, and of course we don't have some of the videotape because at one point she kicked one of the officers and broke their body cam. That would be a reason to mace somebody, wouldn't it? No. Just asking. But I think it would be interesting. I think it would be interesting to hear her story direct, without the filter of that prepared statement that I'm sure she was coached or reasonably sure she was coached to put together. In my mind, what hit me more than anything is at one point in the video, she says, "I'm going to tell my dad on you." And the policeman's response was, "Great, let's go tell him together." So clearly at that moment in time, before any of the macing, any of the hands-on type thing occurred, she could have ended the situation, and she chose not to.
Well, let me raise this point because she did say during what was captured on the body camera that I have OCD, don't touch me. And then during her prepared statement, she had indicated that she had some other health issues. I mean, Ron, do you think that could be a valid reason for the way that she had acted?
There's a lot of things could be a valid reason. If you look at all the different issues of the different places, it seems like once the true facts are out, the whole thing changes. We tend to have a longer period of time to get the facts out. People make decisions and say things before they know the facts. I, like you, Colin watched every minute, everything I could watch. And she is supposed to be a really good student, but I think her grade in citizenship in this particular instance does not have a passing grade.
No, I would agree.
In this particular instance, again, it's how you treat the people that's dealing with you. And here we developed a conflict with a 15-year-old, and her language was unbelievable. The vocabulary that she possessed at 15 years old, not surprising, to deal with an issue that serious.
Well, so here's a couple of things I would offer to that as well, which is completely in support of what you're saying, Ron. So the end result of this entire scenario was the fact that she was charged with assault on 2 officers and narcotics possession. She had marijuana on her possession. Had she cooperated in the beginning, she would not have been searched. Nothing else would have happened. The only thing that would have happened is they would have called her parents. Her parents would have come down. She would have been released, and that would have been the end of it. She, as a bike rider, has no insurance. There's no insurance information to exchange. From the vehicle owner's standpoint, it's basically just an unadvertised road hazard. It would be covered. It was just a mirror that was broken, and that would be the end of it.
Unless you added fuel to the fire.
Right.
And the fuel to the fire was the attorney. And once the attorney began his dissertation and comments.
Attorney is a loose term. He was disbarred in 2012, as I found out.
I think he's still an attorney. Okay?
You know, and we're looking at this from an adult's perspective. She was a 15-year-old, and she may not have ever been in, that situation. She was probably extremely scared. And as you all watched the video, you saw too what she said about her parents. To me, it seems she was scared to go home to her parents. They were probably going to severely discipline her. At least that's the take that I got from this. And I think the
they
parents
was watching
probably
a
played a big role.
football game though, and she
in all
didn't
fairness,
yeah.
and I was no angelic 15-year-old, and I may or may not have had my own run-ins with various authority figures. The proper response is not to start cursing, screaming, kicking, and everything else. So
And
I'm
think-
not sure that there is any excuse for that.
I think the police, at least from the standpoint, at least from my vantage point, made it very clear that all they wanted to do was get her back to her parents, and that's it. Now, I've got 2 other questions that I want to pose to the group here in the short time we have left, and that is, number 1, Mayor Geisbert's jumping in on her press conference. I thought that was a big mistake, and I know his heart was in the right place, and I know he was trying to do the right thing and protect the city that he loves. I think it was the wrong thing to do. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I think from the segment that was shown on social media, it made the press conference look extremely unorganized.
And the problem is, they had a mic, he didn't.
Right.
He's automatically at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of the things that were said by the, I guess at this point, alleged attorney that was representing her were so egregious that I think, honestly, anybody, and he was only jumping in defense of the city police. And, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent, I think that's a commendable thing, personally.
Well, again, I would never, Ron, you were in politics, would you step up in somebody else's press conference when you didn't have a mic and had there's a time and a place, and he should defend the police department.
Within someone else's press conference and I were not invited, I would have been very quiet. Had I been in that press conference and my officers were attacked, Katie barred the door what I may have said in my time years and years ago. Today, I would have been more reserved, more laid back. But in the day when I was really involved, there would have been a major confrontation.
So one other real quick question, and I know we're out of time, I just asked him to extend by a minute, but what caused her to get maced? What was the precipitating event that caused her to get maced? My guess is, and that's the only problem I have a potential problem with, is because it looked like by the time they maced her, she was already fully in the car.
Well, I had since learned that there was a separation divider
Right.
Yes, there's
in
a
the
divider
car.
in the back of
So
the police car.
it was hard to tell from the body camera, but they could not get her legs and everything inside the
Okay, so
vehicle.
she
They had
wouldn't
asked
put
her
her
several
legs in.
times.
So really what they're trying to do is to get her in the back seat and close the door to where she'd be in a contained space and couldn't hurt herself or anybody
Right,
else.
not only a contained space, but to get her out of that area because there was a crowd building, and
Right.
in my opinion, it was to create a more safe
Well,
environment
and from
for
a police
everyone
standpoint,
involved.
you have to try to de-escalate the scenario. So staying there any longer, and you're absolutely right, that's what they're trying to do. So remove her from the situation so that they're not going to cause a bigger issue.
Right.
Well, that was a great conversation. I think that's all the time we have on that one. But next up on the flip side, our panel discusses the controversy behind the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We're back in 3 minutes.